Unit 4, day 6, we've got the quadratic formula. So I can solve a quadratic equation equal to 0 by using the quadratic formula. So we've done a few so far. Remember, we did factoring. We've done graphing. We did square roots. And then the last one we learned was complete the square. It was really just a helpful way of using square roots. The fifth method we're going to use is the quadratic formula. So quadratic formula. Quadratic formula is derived by using complete the square on the standard form of quadratic equation. So here's the standard form. So I'm going to do all the steps, and if this kind of blows you away, that's okay. There is a standard that says you have to understand this process. So you have to be able to recognize this process of what's going on here. So my first step we always did with complete the square. So the process of complete the square was kick the c to the right side. Oops, equals negative c. Now I took a out of there. I want to get a out of the way, so I'm going to divide everything by a on the left side. So I've got a times x squared plus b divided by a x equals negative c. And then I'm going to take half of this, which kind of a shortcut here is I'm going to take half of that. So I'm going to have x plus half of that, so that'd be b over 2a, because if you want to divide by 2, you'd multiply by a half, so that'd be like putting a 2 underneath it. And then the number I would put here would be plus b squared over, and then 2a, that squared would be 4a squared. What I really added to this side was that b squared over 4a, and this a would cancel one of them out because I'm supposed to multiply by that. So what I actually added here was a b squared over, let's see, I have to carry this a down. So this would be over 4a, because even though it's a 4a squared here, I'm going to multiply by that a, which makes it a 4a that I actually added to that side. So this would equal, now this is over 1, so I'm going to multiply by 4a over 4a, so negative 4ac over 4a plus b squared, all that over 4a. I'm going to divide the a over, which means I'm going to multiply both sides by 1 over a. So I've got x plus b over 2a squared equals, if I multiply this, I'm just going to have a negative 4ac plus b squared over 4a squared. Square root both sides, get rid of the squared, so this would be b over 2a. Over here, this is going to be plus minus, and then this would be a radical negative 4a, actually I'm going to put the b squared first, so b squared and then minus 4ac over 4a squared, but I can square root 4a squared, so if you can square the top or the bottom, you should do that. So x plus b over 2a equals plus minus, and then the square root of b squared minus 4ac, but the square root of 4a squared is 2a. Now bring this over. If I bring that over, it would be a minus. So it would be a negative b. Now these are both over 2a, so I just put them all over 2a. b squared minus 4ac. Now, will you ever be tested on that? No. Okay, so I know somewhere around here you're probably like, what is he even talking about? This is confusing, and I quit. Hopefully you didn't quit. Hopefully you just kept going. But we want to show you that there is a process. Now, I'm not going to ask you to do this process yourself, so don't freak out. It's just the idea that I went from standard form, I did complete the square, and I got the quadratic formula. So you've probably have memorized this at some point in your life, in the last couple of years, but that's how it happened. So you can use the quadratic formula anytime. That's the cool thing about this. This works 100% of the time. We said factoring works sometimes. Graphing works if you have technology. Square roots work if you have no linear term or you have a binomial squared. Complete the square works all the time. Quadratic formula works all the time. So these are the best ones. Now sometimes factoring is faster than quadratic formula but sometimes factoring doesn't work. Quadratic formula always works. So, just a quick reminder on how to do this. Make sure it's equal to 0 first. Make sure it's equal to 0, and then you can label your a, b, and c. So this would be 2x squared minus 3x minus, subtract the 4 over, that'd be minus 5 equals 0. That's my a, that's my b with a negative, and that's my c with a negative. And then you just plug into this guy. So x is going to equal negative b. The opposite of b would be 3. B squared is 9. This is always positive because you're squaring it. Okay, so negative 3 times negative 3 is positive 9. Minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. In your calculator, you can type this all in. We can do the plus once and the minus second. We'll have two different answers. So I can type it all in at once if I'm really careful to make sure everything in the top is in parentheses, in their own set of parentheses. And then everything under the radical is also under parentheses. Especially if you have an older calculator, you got to put your own parentheses in there. The newer calculators, I wouldn't have to put that, but I did just to show how the old calculators work. If I hit equals, I get one of my answers. Okay, so this one is x equals 2.5. Real fast way of doing this. I want the whole thing, but I want to change that plus to a minus. So I'm going to go up and I'm going to push enter, and I can edit this. This is like a copy and paste. When I hit enter, I copy and paste it, and I'm going to switch this to a minus. Ooh. This to a minus. Almost did the wrong thing. Hit enter, I get my other one, negative 1. Okay? Okay, let's do it again. So x squared plus 10x plus 30 equals 0. My a here is 1, my b is 10, my c is 30. So negative b plus or minus the square root, and b squared would be 100 minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. So if you want to type this all in the calculator at once, okay, so type all it in like this, hit enter. Uh-oh, what happened? Red flag. Why did it do that? Well, what happened was this is not a real number. So let's go to, that means everything under the radical must not be a real number. You can't divide by that. So I'm going to just type in this part. So 100 minus, and then 4 times 30 would be 120. So there's a negative 20 on the radical. So negative 10 plus or minus negative 20 all over 2. Negative means there's going to be an I involved. And then 20, 5 times 4, 2 times 2. So there's a pair. So I'm going to pull 2 out. Radical 5. This isn't quite the correct order of everything. But if I look, if all 3 of these are divisible by the same thing, go ahead and divide them. Okay? So 10, 2, and 2 are all divisible by 2. Don't use the number inside. Like up here, I can't do 20 and 2 and reduce that to a negative 10 and a 1 because this isn't 10. It's a square root of 10. It's some weird decimal. But here, this 2 is 2. That 10 is 10, and that 2 is 2. So this would cut everything in half, be negative 5 plus or minus I radical 5 over 1. And I can leave that as my answer. Okay? So if your calculator pops up error, that means there was an I under the radical or a negative under the radical. It's 3x squared minus 6x. Bring that 3 over, that'd be a plus 1. A, B, C. Okay, so negative b would be 6 plus or minus 6 squared would be 36 minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times a. If I'm going too fast, I'm talking too fast, just pause it and try it yourself and then compare. Okay, you're not going to be able to write as fast as I'm doing it. I've done these probably for too many years. I can see the radical is not going to be a negative because 36 minus 12 is positive. But I'm going to type this in the calculator. Okay, so type in the calculator, use your parentheses correctly, hit enter. And one of these answers, now I'll do the decimal form, 1.82. And then I want to copy and paste and get the negative. So 0.18. We'll say 0.18. Now, if Math Excel wants the whole number answers, let's simplify this. Let's keep working on that. So let's say this would be 6 plus or minus, and there's going to be a 6 on bottom. So 36 minus 12, okay, is going to be 24. And then the 24, if I'm trying to factor this down, 6 times 4, 2 times 3, 2 and 2. So I've got a pair of 2s come out. So 6 plus or minus, pull a 2 out front. I've got 6 left under the radical, all over 6. Again, don't reduce these 6's. This is 6, this is 6, that's not 6. That's some weird decimal 2 point something. But this 2 is 2. So 2, 6, and 2 can all reduce. Divide them all by 2. I got 3 plus or minus radical 6 over 3. So this would be exact. If Math Excel wants exact, you have to do this. If it says decimal, I'll say decimal rounded, this is fine. Okay? So go ahead and try the rest of these. Try at least 1 or 2 of them. I'm going to put the answers down here. You just try them out. You can pause them now, try them out. Okay, so there are the answers. Maybe just try one of them. Pick one of them, maybe 2 of them. If you get the first one wrong, try another one. If you get it right, great. You can head on off and do the homework.